Revuelto, a beast of raw passion, charging through history. A storm of strength, wild and fierce. Revuelto, scrambled eggs. Instinct refined by craft. In its name, a fire ignites. Creation unfolds. From chaos, order rises, scrambled, yet flawless. Raw energy tamed by precision. Men hunger for legacy. Chase power and embrace technology's pull. With a bull's fury. Revuelto blends a bull's drive with electric fire. Its soul forever. Scrambled.
Let's get the good news out of the way right at the top. Contained within this, now a different carrying case from Sant'Agata Bolognese, one that's more organic, less edgy, is a naturally aspirated 6.5 liter V12. Yes, I said naturally aspirated. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get into what really this is about. You know it's a plug-in hybrid. I've made this very obvious to you. But how is it a plug-in hybrid? That's what's different here. Many years ago, there was a chap named Tim Woolmer. He came up with the idea of the Yasa motor. It's this thin and weighs 40 pounds. Now, why do I say this? Because this car has 3 of those Yasa motors. So this, not so much putting the electric motors out to the wheels, it's close. You've got 2 electric motors here that are about 111 horsepower each, and then there's an electric motor in the rear. And what's interesting about that one, this picks up a cue from the Lamborghini Miura, where the transmission is mounted transverse. So you've got a longitude-mounted V12. To package the transmission and the motor, they had to turn the transmission around like the first ever supercar. Now, an important aspect about that rear motor, it's not just for torque fill or working when the computer tells it to work, it's also an integrated starter generator motor, so it acts as the starter motor for the vehicle. But where does the rubber meet the road here? And there was a unique piece of feedback that I got in driving this car to the shoot road. That's 55 miles from here. My average MPG with these 3 electric motors in a car with crazy amounts of horsepower, 17.5. Apparently, you and I have found a new game to play. It's called Fantasyland in the STEM fields, and the only player that I know of is Lamborghini because they like to quote the mass of their vehicles as drive. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I don't know how to move something like this without fluid, so they call this for 3,907 pounds, or depending on expression weights and measures, 1,772 kilograms. In the world of reality, this is over 4,300 pounds. That's about just under 2,000 kilograms. With that, Strada. Oh yeah, oh. That wakes up. Oh, that sounds magnificent. It's not about going fast. This is about being seen, but more from the inside of the car. The oral sensation, what it does to you, the reinforcement that this is not a digital experience, very much analog. Now, yes, of course, this is going to be quick, but the first thing you notice is the electric motors. They are doing some torque fill. They do make this thing quicker offline. You feel, not that Lamborghinis before this were slow, I feel pushed back into my seat more so than other previous 12-cylinder Lamborghinis. Now, why is that? Let's just go back to the science of 12-cylinder engines. They're generally lazy. They don't rev very high, So torque doesn't really come in very, very, very low, or explosive is the best way to put it. With the electric motors, oh my God, it is explosive. Now that's not the only change going on here. The transmission is probably a bigger change here. The transmission, now this is a sea change because it's no longer this horrid single clutch transmission, and that makes a huge difference in drivability. I'm certain that was a lovely description, but what the hell does that mean? Translated, it's more usable with this concert of a 12-cylinder engine, 3 electric motors, and now this very techno transmission. Now there's another trick going on here, and to do that, we need a straight, and we have to go up to a sport. Okay, we're in Corsa. I'm going to try to get to the highest gear that I can without running on a road. Okay, we're at 6. Hold the left brake on, and notice the car goes all the way down to 2nd gear on its own. That wasn't me pulling it individually. The transmission is programmed to downshift as far as it can go down without blowing up the transmission and the engine. So let's you and I geek out on a bit more tech, then move into some design. We've already determined this, not lightweight, even though it is a super sports car from Sant'Agata Bolognese. So the engineers there had to oblige with some light weighting. Now there you would expect carbon fiber, and they have given it to you. Basically this entire front end is carbon fiber, bits like this. And then there is a tub. Here, this is like frankincense and myrrh kind of carbon fiber, but now you have to contend with packaging a 3.8 kilowatt hour battery. Not large, but where do you put it when you have a very long engine here, the transmission here, and basically no space up there? So what they've done is they've taken the tunnel inside the tub, and that's where they've packaged the battery. So it's not just, this is a great place to put it, it adds some structure to the vehicle. So this way, you can take structure out of other parts of the vehicle, so the overall chassis, basically the rolling chassis of the car, is lighter than the car it replaces. Okay, that's all the structural bits back here. What about the structural bits back here that have the very important job of holding and basically cradling a very large and heavy 12-cylinder engine? This is all lightweight, high-strength steel. Then we package all of this in active aero. We'll talk about that a bit later. Then there's a unique detail that I didn't expect in a vehicle like this. Whether it's an OEM wheel or aftermarket wheels, which usually show no taste whatsoever, people go with very low-profile tires. Notice the profile of the tires specifically in the rear of this vehicle. There is more sidewall here. No, you're not going to be doing any rock crawling with this all-wheel drive vehicle, but it did bring about something unusual I didn't expect. The ride quality here is significantly better, and I think this goes a long way to make this drive, for lack of a better term, like a normal car, because there is some sidewall. Then we get into some design bits here. Now, this whole angular stuff, this is not my thing, but here it's less angled. I mean, yeah, you've got some creases here and you've got some creases here, but overall there's softer edges here, which make this, it's more palatable for more people. And I'll tell you the reason why I say that. I picked this car up and man, oh man, that color, it's stunning, and we'll find out it's expensive, but it stands out. And it wasn't the usual, like, dudes came up to me and say, oh my God, is that the new Lamborghini X? This car, I probably had no less than 4 grandmothers come up to me and say, oh my God, that is such a beautiful car and I love the color. Okay, so there's no one behind us, which gives us a great opportunity to demonstrate the personality of this thing, a very large one at that. Now, we all know this has some German roots, and I say that because I can't help but feeling this has something to do with the Luftwaffe. Everything is very aviation-inspired. It's whatever the Italian version of that too. You're going through and switching toggles to get the most out of the vehicle, and they're all kind of on the steering wheel. So we already have this thing in Corsa, which you do up here. You also activate the EV mode here. Then we want to get into the active aero. That's this here. So far we've been on auto. Let's turn that up to max. So that's going to direct the airflow around the car to create the most downforce. Then we can adjust the dampers separately from the drive mode, and we can put that into hard. There's really only two choices, soft and hard with that. Okay, oh my God, this thing. I'm a Porsche guy. I cannot help but just smile like a schoolgirl driving this thing. Oh my God, this feels very different in Corsa mode. Like you could slide around the road very easily, even though this is all-wheel drive. Can I say this is probably not a good name for it? It's probably how do I kill myself very quickly mode. And I say that because this is a Lamborghini from time gone by, where everything comes together to push you just that far out of your comfort zone, reminding you that we are still very much Lamborghini, and we know how to build cars that scare the hell out of you. And oh my God, they sound fantastic while I was doing it. So with that, let's go back down to a more palatable mode. This is the sport mode. So we're getting some chassis aids. I feel the four-wheel steering here a bit more. Everything kind of works. Yes, this is the big 12-cylinder car. Yes, it weighs more than previous big 12-cylinder cars, but the weight doesn't get in the way. This is a plug-in hybrid. Oh God, that sounds magnificent. This is a plug-in hybrid that works incredibly well. It kind of hides the weight. You don't feel it up here, and shockingly, you don't feel it around town. Then, oh, there are the brakes. The brakes here, clearly this needs a lot of stopping power. Lamborghini's always been unusually good about that. In this case, I feel modulation. Let's try it here. On accelerator, let's get up to fourth gear. No one behind us. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud. Most Porsche guys, they like to shit all over these cars. This is not a Lamborghini you shit all over. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the Options game with today's contestant, probably the most unique plug-in hybrid you and I have ever driven. And I say that not because of those electric motors we've already discussed, rather the price. You see, this has a base price built in, $604,363. Now, as you can imagine, there are a number of options fitted to this car. In total, 35 options. So let's talk about some key options that stand out, at least in my mind. You gotta have sport seats, right? $7,600. You wanna entertain your passenger. After all, it is a Lamborghini. You're looking for attention. That's about just under $4,000 for a screen on the passenger side. And then, let's say for the sake of discussion, you wanna connect your iPhone to your $604,000 Lamborghini. That's an additional $3,400. And then you know the fire extinguisher that I have in my car that cost me like $300 from Porsche? $700 here. And then this one, man, oh man, is it dressed up. It's pretty. I mean, this thing really stands out. Even me, who's not really into Lamborghinis, looks at this and said, that is really a good looking car. Because it has all these carbon fiber bits on it, there are 2 carbon fiber packages that add up to over $45,000. Then, of course, let's not forget that color. And I have to say, it is a stunning color. Absolutely comes off the page in direct sunlight where it kind of sparkles like Tiffany, and I would call that Tiffany blue. They call it blue Cepheus for $13,100. Then, of course, you have a car that is now over 700 grand. You gotta have a garage door opener, right? Does that come with the car? Absolutely not. You must pay $600 to open the garage in which to store your Lamborghini. Then you bought a plug-in hybrid, so you know what's coming here. You must be punished because the federal government needs to have a word with you, and you have to cough up an additional $4,000 in gas guzzler tax. And then while you're getting $4 grand out, peel off another $4 grand for the destination handling from Sant'Agata Bolognese. Now, before we get to the total price here, I just want to point something out. You and I joke about these expensive cars and say, oh my God, you can buy a house for that kind of money in like Dallas or like Tampa, Florida. But this car at $748,858, you can buy a house in California. Now, you could look at me and say I'm crazy. How do they get off with charging this kind of money? Well, there's a market for it. You see, these are all about making your own car, making a one-of-one car. That's why they're so expensive, and probably because of the tech here. But if you look back at the resale market of old Aventadores, the market is there. Like you go back to like 2015, they're starting to depreciate a bit, but really not a lot, and they're starting to go back up. The most recent Aventadores, those are actually at their retail price or more. The Ultima, the last edition, those are going for way more if they're very, very low miles. The Countach, which was based on the Aventador, those are way over. Those are like $2.5 million. So in other words, we could laugh 750 grand, but the resale market is kind of there for these things. So I have an admission to make. I've been holding out on you throughout this entire episode. I've been driving like this, not really to entertain myself, but for science. And with that, let's get to the science. There's no one behind us. Let's change to a different personality. Back to the whole aviation, Luftwaffe, or whatever the Italian term that is. If we hit this button here, the car will go into, yes, it is now in EV mode according to this display. And it puts us back into the city mode. So it only works in the city mode. And with that, shall we accelerate as an electric car? Now, the first thing you notice is what you don't notice, the sound. I've been crowing about, oh my God, this is an amazing oral sensation, even with the 3 electric motors. But the minute I drove this car, the first time I experienced it was in electric mode. And you can't help but notice it's not a $750,000 driving experience in EV mode. Not that it drives poorly. Rather, you notice the very complex construction method more here. You hear it. So all the carbon fiber around you and all the bits that are attached to the carbon fiber, you hear them not like creaking and rattling, more like rustling. It's very weird, and you hear much more not tire noise, but bits being kicked up by the tires because the tires are so wide and they're more like Gatling guns rather than tires. Then you start to notice other things you wouldn't notice in driving a car like this because you'd be so focused in the driving experience, keeping this thing on the road, because it is, I'm going to reinforce, this is a different kind of Lamborghini from a time gone by, not like recent Lamborghinis. You look in the rearview mirror here, and they've done this thing where they don't have the glass that covers the engine, which I think is fantastic. However, behind the engine, they have these like vents. They're almost like gills or like almost reptilian. And makes the car, when you put all of it together, the sounds, the feeling of the driving dynamics, even stitched together with the EV propulsion, this has an organic feel to it, almost like it's a living, breathing thing. And you put that all together with the look of the car that it's a Lamborghini. It's got all the design ethos of the soapbox derby, but you still have more soft angles. And that comes together in the EV driving experience, which I have to say is something better than most plug-in hybrids out there. And again, you're not noticing the weight. And there it gets back to those electric motors, by making them so thin and so light, it kind of transforms the experience here. I'm just going to throw this out here. I am shocked how well this works, especially considering all the new. You've got the electrification with the very special Yasa motors, the transmission, the carrying case, and then all the structure. Then you add that into it's a Lamborghini and what you expect of a Lamborghini, and my God, it exceeds all those expectations, even for someone that's not into that kind of car. The only question in my mind is this. Their neighbor, They've done this electrification thing before with effectively the same motors, and the resale market on those, not so great. I think it's about the price went too high on those cars. I don't think that's the case here because this is like the super 12-cylinder car. So I'm interested to see what happens with resale of electrified 12-cylinder Lamborghinis. But I'm just one man. At this point in the episode, I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all word, MotoManTV all word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And with that, I do want to share a little bit behind the scenes. I had this car with another car at the same time, and you would think the two together, this would get all the attention. That wasn't the case. The car that was less than the options of this car, that's the one everybody came up and said, oh my God, what is that? Till I see you in the next episode, bis später. So you bought yourself a $750,000 plug-in hybrid. How do you plug it in? Well, simplicity would say back here, where you see this little door. That is for the gas, because remember, it's a plug-in hybrid. Could you plug it in here? There's no space to put the plug. Well, apparently, Sant'Agata Bolognese found a unique space that is far more challenging than a $32,000 Prius Prime, and just the avoidance of doubt, just the carbon fiber alone in this car is more than a Prius Prime. Here is your plug. So you take this, you plug it in here. There we go. But then, let's say you have something valuable in the frunk and you want to put this down. There's really no way in which to anchor this completely. Yeah, it's hooked in, but not fully locked. So what they do is you hit this, lock the door of the car, hopefully that get locked, and then here, oh, it shouldn't have opened, but it did. Let's try that again. Okay, now let's try locking it again. Ready? Lock, lock. Apparently don't put crap in the front of your car when you're trying to plug it in.